Would you believe me if I told you we only spend 2 hours hiring for a new role and they're all a great fit? We've built out a hiring funnel that filters top candidates without wasting hours in interviews. And today, we're going to show you exactly how we do it so you can hire faster and smarter too. Hi there, if you're new here, my name is Prash and I'm documenting my journey growing my education startup. For quick context, we are an education startup hiring for executive function tutors. These are people who can coach students who struggle with lack of planning, disorganization, task management, and more. We designed our hiring process to be 66% asynchronous, meaning most of the heavy lifting is done before we even talk to candidates. We use an automated funnel and a scoring system to filter out applications before the final interview so that when we do talk to candidates, we know that they're a good fit. Let's break it down step by step. First up, every candidate submits a Google Form application. This isn't just a basic info form. Instead, we screen for critical skills up front. Here's what our 10-minute Google Form application looks like.
This Google Form application can take about 10 minutes or so to fill out. It asks questions like their name, their email address, the STEM subjects that they have tutored in, since we have many students who need STEM support, and then their time zone, since we work with students all around the US. And then we have this question that asks them to record and submit a video that answers these 4 questions. This question is super important for us to see how they interact remotely, their experience working with students who have executive function challenges, and just general ways they handle challenging scenarios. And then a link to their resume, their general availability, since we want to work with tutors who have more availability for our students on the weekdays and weekends. And then LinkedIn, links they want to share, if they are authorized to work lawfully in the US. Currently, we can only hire nationally, and then how they heard about this opportunity. So overall, this form does a really great job in filtering out candidates who are a good fit because we're seeing how they interact remotely with the video, with submitting the form, and the things that the subject that they can tutor on, as well as how they interact with students who have executive function challenges and their families.
Next, my team scores applications on a 1 to 4 scale, with 4 being a perfect fit. For candidates who score an average of 3 and above, then they automatically get moved forward. If someone scores between 2.5 and 2.99, then I will personally review those applications. I'm specifically looking for people who have direct experience working with neurodivergent families, a flexible schedule, and diverse subjects they can tutor. With our scoring system, this means we eliminate unqualified applicants early instead of wasting unnecessary time in interviews. When a candidate passes our Google application process, then they do our shadow a session Google Doc all asynchronously. They watch a 30-minute recording of a tutoring session, and then they fill out questions in a Google Doc of what they liked and what they would want to improve. Here's what our shadow a session Google Doc looks like.
The goal of this document is to provide our candidates a clear picture of what their sessions with students look like. It asks them to watch a 30-minute recording with one of our students, and then they have to answer the questions below, and then lastly to book a time with me for their final 60-minute interview, as well as confirming their general availability for the week. The questions here ask them to share what they liked from the video, what they would have done differently. Question 2 for me is really important because I want to know how a candidate gives constructive feedback and generally how they're thinking about improvements. And then the 3rd and 4th question assesses their ability to use and optimize our asynchronous services. Part of our work is that in between our sessions with students, we support them by providing session notes, checking in with them, seeing kind of where they are at with their next steps, etc. So I want to really know how they're thinking about optimizing that time. So number 3 is asking them how they would support the student knowing that they have a science test in 3 days, and that support doesn't have to be in Google Meet. And the 4th question allows them to see how our session notes look like. And again, I really want to understand what are the things that they want to keep, they want to add or improve from the way we currently do session notes. And then this last question just allows us to have questions to discuss during our 60-minute interview. So overall, this is a terrific exercise for our candidates to know what their role actually looks like in the day-to-day. And it also gives us as the business the opportunity to answer those questions that they may have of what does my work look like.
By the time we get to the final interview, we already know that this person is likely a good fit. So we don't waste time asking questions like, tell me about yourself. Instead, we throw real-world challenging scenarios at them to see how they think on their feet. Here's what our interview agenda looks like.
Our 60-minute interview has 3 parts. The first are questions around challenging scenarios. The second are questions around the shadow a session Google Doc. And then the third are general questions from me and from them. So the scenario-based questions, how they start is that I copy and paste this context into the Google Meet chat, and it allows our candidates to better understand what the context is for these challenging scenarios. So it tells them that they are working with 5 different students, and the scenarios below will be for just one of our trial students who's in 10th grade and is a student athlete. And then it also just gives more logistics of what our trial sessions look like. One of the scenarios we tell them is to imagine that the first 60-minute session that they have with this new student is tomorrow. And we ask them, what do you want to make sure is in your agenda and why? This question is super important for us because I want to better understand how they are thinking of providing value to a student in a very contained time period. And I also want to understand how are they using the information from the context to make that session really useful for that student. So some things that really stand out to me are when I see a candidate walking me through how they build student rapport and how they make the tools that we're using like Google Meet, etc., accessible for students, and just generally how they make the student feel supported with upcoming assignments and tests and etc. And then after the scenario-based questions, we go over the shadow a session portion. Depending on time, really the main question I get to ask here is how does the candidate build rapport with students? This is super important for our business because for us, student connections and student rapport is the foundation of how we can really effectively coach them towards their goals. And then if time allows, we might also ask them what they think success looks like in the session so that we can better understand how they're perceiving a successful session. And then last but not least, I ask general questions like just confirming the subjects that they can tutor, and then their experience working remote and just availability like questions. My favorite question or topic to ask in this section is for them to teach me anything that they are currently learning or are teaching someone. And I tell them that I won't know anything about what they're teaching me, and I will ask questions to imply that I don't know anything about it. This is such a helpful question because we're in a space of coaching students and tutoring students. And the more that I can see how they scaffold something that might feel complicated, the more that I can see how that would look like when they work with students. So overall, this interview agenda is jam-packed, and it really allows candidates to address challenging scenarios, brainstorm and collaborate with me on what that looks like, and then give us an opportunity to better see how they collaborate and work with students by teaching me something.
So, how do we keep our process streamlined? That's a great question. For us, we track everything in a pipeline using Streak CRM, which is an extension directly in Gmail. Depending on the stage that the candidates are on, our Streak CRM will send them an automated email to keep them in the loop. Here's what our hiring pipeline and automated process looks like.
Our hiring pipeline has all these different stages like submitted Google form, inviting to a shadow session, and then when they complete it, they go to completed shadow session. Once we know a time for us to meet, then they go to the confirmed founder interview stage. And then when we're figuring out next steps, they go to internal decision. And if we decided that we're not going to go with them, then they either go to the past founder interview where we send more personalized email, since they spent a lot of time to really go through this process that we want to at least provide feedback of why. And then pass is just the general past stage if they don't make it to the shadow session Google Doc. Some of the columns that we have here is the current stage that the candidate is on, when it was created, and we also have when we have the founder interview, the date, the time, we have an automation that once they enter the confirmed founder interview stage, as long as I fill in these 2 columns, it'll send them an automated email with those 2 informations. And really building these automations just helps save a lot of time with the manual work. The STEM subjects that they can tutor, as well as general availability, all the information that we get from the Google form, like the video that they recorded, the resume link, they're authorized to work in the US. We also have another automation that when the Google form is submitted, all of those fields goes and automatically gets mapped into here, which again saves us a lot of manual time. Here's an example of what at least one of those email automations look like. So when I move this box to the sent offer letter, it's going to send an email to this contact that I have here, and the email will share all of the before pre-onboarding steps, and it'll also give a personalized sentence of why we are moving forward with them. So I'm going to go ahead and move this to the sent offer letter stage, and then you will see that there's an automated email that gets sent to them. Now that the automation kicked in, to see that email, I'm just going to open it by clicking this diagonal icon. This shows me all the information about that candidate in terms of our 60-minute interview notes, and then the email that just got sent. So here it just shows them their name, and then this personalization that I inputted for them on why we decide to move forward with them, and just the pre-onboarding steps below. So by being able to automate sending these follow-up emails when they enter a particular stage, or when a Google form is submitted, mapping specific columns in our hiring pipeline, it saved us lots and lots of manual efforts of copying and pasting, and it allowed us to really focus on what's important, which is having these meaningful conversations with candidates.
To recap, before we built this system, we were spending countless of hours interviewing and screening candidates who weren't a good fit. Now, we spend 2 hours per hire, and the people we bring on are amazing. Every single tutor we've hired through this process has been a perfect fit for our team and our families. With that, what's the biggest challenge in your hiring process? Let me know in the comments below, and I'd love to help you streamline it. To wrap up, if you're hiring and drowning in too many interviews, try these things. 1, adding asynchronous activities early in your hiring process. 2, creating a scoring system. 3, using a pipeline to track your candidates. 4, using scenario-based interviews. And 5, automating whatever feels manual. All of these have been game changers for us. And a fun fact, I learned all of these tips from working at Streak, and I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to work with that wonderful team. If you'd like to learn more on why I quit Streak and why I decided to go full-time in my business in this economy, check out my video in one of these corners. Thanks so much for watching, and see you in the next one.